The sun had barely pushed itself over the far ridge when Rowan Hale rode into the quiet valley town of Dry Creek, dust swirling at his boots as though even the earth knew he wasn't used to stopping anywhere for long. He was a man shaped by silence, broad-shouldered, weather-toughened, and carrying that invisible heaviness that settles on a man who spent far too many years alone, the kind of loneliness that didn't shout or cry. It just sat quietly inside him, deep as a buried well. Rowan had come for one reason: the arrival of the woman he'd been writing letters to for months, the woman he'd ended up buying a ranch cabin for, the woman who was finally stepping into Dry Creek today. A bride, a giant bride. The thought still unsettled him, not in fear but in disbelief. He had never imagined himself sending for anyone, much less someone like her. But when her first letter had arrived, her writing large and strong like the woman behind it, he had felt something in his chest stir awake. Her name was Mira, and today as he waited outside the old stage depot, Rowan's weathered palms pressed against his knees, he felt the kind of nerves only a man out of practice with hope could feel. Then he saw her. She stepped down from the stagecoach, with the careful grace of someone used to her own size, yet still unsure of how others might react to it. Mira was tall, head and shoulders above every man in town, and built with a strength that wasn't carved for intimidation but simply a fact of her existence. Long dark hair fell in braided coils over her shoulder. Her clothes were simple travel garments, but even they couldn't hide the way she stood out, like a mythic figure placed by mistake in an ordinary world. The moment her feet touched the dirt, she looked around, eyes searching, hopeful, but tinged with fear, and when they landed on Rowan, they softened. "You must be him," she said, her voice lower than he expected, warm, a little shy. Rowan rose slowly, removing his hat without realizing it. "And you must be Mira." Her smile grew just a little. "Bigger than you thought?" He swallowed. Not in a bad way. She stepped closer, and the ground seemed to answer her weight with a soft, respectful thud. The top of Rowan's head barely reached her collarbone, and for a moment, they both just stood there, silent. Two lives that had only known each other through ink, now breathing the same air. "I was afraid you wouldn't come," she admitted quietly. He shook his head. "No, I said I'd be here." Her hands fidgeted, fingers brushing each other. "People usually change their minds when they finally see me." Rowan's jaw clenched. It wasn't anger at her, never. Her. But at whatever world had made her expect rejection as a certainty. "Well," he said, voice steady, "I ain't people." That earned him her first real smile. Wide, bright, unguarded. They walked together toward his horse, a stocky Mustang named Pike. Pike snorted when Mira came close, not frightened, just aware. Animals had instincts people didn't. Mira reached out and stroked the horse's neck gently. "Hello, boy." Pike leaned into her touch. Rowan blinked. "He ain't that friendly with strangers." "I'm not a stranger," she said lightly. "I've heard about him in every one of your letters." He felt heat rise to his ears. He hadn't realized how much he'd written about the horse. Or about everything else. His ranch, the creek, the storms, the emptiness. "You ready to ride out?" he asked. She looked from Pike to Rowan with a careful expression. "I'll walk beside you." "Wouldn't want to crush your saddle." He laughed, a rare sound from him, rough but genuine. "Fair enough." They started down the road toward his ranch. The sky widened into a bold blue above them, and the morning wind carried the smells of sage, dust, and new beginnings. After a few minutes of quiet walking, Mira spoke again. "You're quieter than I imagined." "Might be," he replied, "but don't mean I don't got things to say." Her eyebrows lifted. "Such as?" He hesitated. Something inside him pushed, soft, nervous, but insistent. She had crossed half a continent for him. He owed her honesty. "I just want to know," he said finally, voice low, "if you think you can handle all this." She slowed. "All what?" He gestured at himself, the rancher. The loneliness, the life that wasn't glamorous, the man who didn't always know how to speak but felt too deeply for his own good. "All of me," he clarified. Her steps stopped entirely. Rowan took another 2 paces before realizing she wasn't beside him. He turned, finding her standing in the middle of the road, sunlight spilling golden over her shoulders. Her expression wasn't afraid. It wasn't uncertain. It was strong, gentle, assured. She stepped toward him, slow, deliberate. And though she had to tilt her head down to meet his eyes, there was no condescension in it. Only warmth. Rowan Hale, she said, her voice barely above a whisper but steady as a church bell. I crossed mountains, rivers, and desert because I thought you might be a man worth meeting. Don't ask me if I can handle you. She lifted her hand, brushing her knuckles lightly along the curve of his jaw. He didn't flinch. He didn't breathe. She smiled softly. Ask if you can handle me. His heart slammed against his ribs. He swallowed once, twice, and murmured the first words that rose in his chest. Can you handle me? She gave him the slightest smirk, playful, teasing, confident in a way that made his breath catch. This much, she said, holding her fingers apart just a little. Then she widened the gap between them, slowly, dramatically, until her whole hand spread open like she was revealing the horizon. And more. Rowan didn't move, didn't speak, but something inside him, tired, lonely, aching, shifted like a locked door finally giving way. And Mira, seeing it, let her smile soften once more. Come on, Cowboy, she said gently. Show me where my new home is. They continued toward the ranch, side by side, not yet touching, not yet close. But something had already changed. A beginning had taken root between them, wild and unspoken, and both of them felt it. The cabin came into view just as the sun reached its peak, warming the rough-hewn logs and the tin roof until they glimmered faintly in the brightness. It wasn't large nor impressive, but it held Rowan's history in every board. The nights he'd slept alone listening to coyotes, the years he'd worked land no one else wanted, the quiet moments where he wondered if he'd ever have anyone to share it with. Now watching Mira approach it, her stride long, steady, confident despite the long journey, Rowan felt something stir in him. Something he hadn't allowed himself to imagine. Hope. Mira paused near the porch, studying the place carefully. She took it in with thoughtful eyes, not judgment. Not disappointment, just quiet consideration. This is yours? She asked. Been mine 10 years, Rowan replied, dismounting from Pike. Ain't big, but it's enough. She turned to him, her shadow falling over him like a gentle shelter. Enough is better than too much. He didn't know how to answer that. She walked toward the steps and placed her large palm on the railing. Her fingers dwarfed the wood, yet her touch was light, almost reverent. You fix this yourself, she murmured. Every nail, he admitted. Then it's perfect. Her praise did something strange to him, made him want to stand taller. Speak clearer, be a better man. But he just nodded, suddenly shy. They stepped inside. The cabin's single large room held a fireplace made of river stones, a sturdy table, shelves of tools and tins, and a bed tucked into the far corner, simple, honest, lived in. Mira inhaled deeply, the rustic scent of pine resin and old smoke filling her lungs. Smells like work, she said. Hope that ain't a problem. It's a comfort. She ran her fingers along the mantel, tracing dust and grain. A home should smell like the life lived inside it. Rowan had no idea how to respond. Mira had a way of saying things that felt deeper than the words themselves. He motioned toward the small stack of belongings he'd prepared for her. Ain't much, he said. A few things I could afford. More'll come once you settle in. She approached the items, a freshly sewn quilt, some new plates, a handmade wooden chair, and touched each with a tenderness he didn't expect. You bought these for me? Didn't know what you'd need, just wanted you to have something that was yours. Her eyes softened. She turned, and for the first time since arriving, she stepped close enough that Rowan felt her shadow wrap around him again. Her hand moved, not fast, but deliberate, and came to rest lightly against his shoulder. You're kind, she said quietly. Kinder than you think. His heart kicked in his chest like a horse against a stall gate. Mira's touch withdrew, but slowly, as if she didn't truly want to pull away. She walked toward the window, ducking her head slightly to avoid the low beam, then gazed out at the vast stretch of land beyond the cabin. This country, she whispered. It's wide, wilder than back home. You scared? She shook her head. Not scared, just adjusting. She turned back to him. What about you? Me? You've lived alone a long time, she said gently. Now someone else is here. Is that hard? Rowan exhaled. He appreciated her directness, even if it made him uneasy. Hard to say, he admitted. I ain't used to talking, or being close to folks. I noticed, she said with the faintest smile. He rubbed the back of his neck. I ain't good with people. But you wrote me more letters than any man's ever sent me, she countered. That was different. How? He hesitated. In the letters, he could think before writing. He could hide his pauses, his fears. He could rewrite himself into a man less hesitant, less scarred by silence. Speaking the truth aloud was harder. Mira stepped closer again, though not too close, just enough that he felt the warmth of her presence. Rowan, I don't expect you to be perfect, or talk like some silver-tongued salesman. I just want real. You got real, he said. That's all I can be. Good, she murmured, because I didn't come here for some smooth-talking man. I came here for you. Her words hung between them, warm as a hearth fire. Rowan swallowed. I just want to know if I can keep up. With you. Mira blinked, surprised. With me? Well, he gestured upward as if meaning everything about her height, her strength, her confidence, her presence. You're a lot. Instead of taking offense, Mira laughed softly, a deep, warm sound that filled the room. She lowered herself onto the wooden chair he'd made for her. It creaked under her weight but held firm. I am a lot, she agreed. But being big doesn't mean I'm too much. Rowan lowered himself onto the edge of the table, arms folded. You ever get tired of people staring? All the time. But I learned to stand tall anyway. Even when men look at you wrong? She shrugged. Most of them are too afraid to come near. They talk big but walk small. It's fine. You think I walk small? No, she said simply. You're quiet but not small. Her certainty unsettled him. He wasn't used to being seen so clearly. Mira continued, her voice gentler. I didn't come here looking for someone my size. I came looking for someone my strength could lean on. Someone who wouldn't run. Rowan's breath caught. I ain't running. I know, she replied. That's why I'm here. The room grew quiet again. Not awkward, just full of the unsaid things neither knew how to voice. After a long moment, Rowan shifted, pushing himself off the table. He walked toward the shelf and retrieved a small tin box, a gift he'd almost been too shy to offer. I got something for you, he said. She tilted her head. Another gift? Not much, he muttered. She opened the tin carefully. Inside was a carved wooden pendant, a small flower, simple but smooth and polished. Her fingers dwarfed it completely, yet she held it as if it were fragile. Glass. You made this? She breathed. Figured. Maybe it'd remind you you're wanted here. Her lips parted, and for the first time since their meeting, she looked genuinely shaken, not by fear, not by uncertainty, but by tenderness. Rowan, she whispered. This is the kindest gift anyone's given me. He didn't know what to say, so he just nodded, awkward but earnest. Mira stood, closing the distance between them with careful, deliberate steps. When she reached him, she gently took his much smaller hand in both of hers. Her touch was warm, steady, anchoring. Rowan Hale, she murmured. You don't need to ask if you can handle me. His breath hitched. Because I've already chosen you. She lifted his hand to her chest, not forcefully, not boldly, just enough for him to feel the steady beat of her heart beneath her shirt. You're enough, she whispered. His voice came rough, barely audible. And you think I can make you happy? She smiled. You already have. For the first time in years, Rowan felt something inside him, something lonely and empty, filled with a quiet, powerful warmth. Mira stepped back, giving him space again. Show me the land, she said softly. Show me what our life could look like. He nodded, grabbed his hat and opened the cabin door for her. They stepped out into the bright valley, the wind rising around them like an old friend greeting new beginnings. Rowan walked ahead a few paces, then stopped, turning back to her with a small smile. You coming? He asked. Mira grinned. Always. And together, they walked toward the wide open plains. Two mismatched souls who had somehow found exactly the place they fit.